What's up, y'all? I'm all out of shirts, and today we're doing advanced patcher stuff. Specifically how you can make this preset, which turns anything that you put into it into a granular loop. So this to this, this to this, and this to this. So let's start out by demystifying what this patch does. First of all, I'll turn off the parameters and then expand out the signal path. That way you can kind of see what's going on here. And in the surface, you'll see that we have three different modules. We have a spectral gate, we have a pitch shifter, and we have a grain scrambler. So to see how the audio runs through this thing, and remember, it's an advanced tutorial, so I'm not going to cover all the basic stuff that I normally would. It goes through the spectral gate, then through this pitch shifter, then up through this multiband delay. And there are a couple of split offs like right here in this fruity send, down here bypassing the entire patch, and in this reverb channel right here that bypasses the multiband delay. So I'll spend some time on those, but I'm not going to show you how to build a patcher preset. This is advanced. Welcome to the big leagues. Or the little leagues, depending on how much you think I know what I'm doing. And so I think the easiest way to go through this one is just to play a sound into it, kind of manipulate it, and explain what is happening. So we have the spectral gate right here, which is just these three different parameters linked to each of those. So I'll kind of play my sound here. And as you can hear, it's really choppy, and that's coming from the pitch shifter. So the first thing I've set up is this solo gate button. Now what this does is when I click it, it turns on this dry that's in this fruity send, and it takes this dry, which is on when it's off, and turns it off when it's on. Now I've set that up by routing the parameter that goes into this second send, which is the same one that goes into this first send, to be modulated by this fruity formula controller, which is mapped using an invert preset, which, as you can see here, A is the input, so this is the activated parameter. The output will be inverted if B is turned on, so B is turned on, which is just the fastest way to explain that when the solo gate is turned on, it bypasses the rest of the chain. So it goes through here instead of through here. And I say all that to say the reason that I've added this is so that I can work on the spectral gate without having to hear how the rest of the effects mess the signal up. So it's just letting me hear what the spectral gate's doing. So let's go ahead and use the spectral gate now. So now we've kind of got that little spectral gated type sound that people are using a lot nowadays. Then I've also set up this little dry input gain, which just allows me to send some dry signal too, along with my spectral gated signal if I want to, into the pitch shifter. So let's go ahead and turn my solo gate off, which is going to send it back to the pitch shifter. And so for the pitch shifter, I have a couple different knobs connected. First of all, I have my pitch. Then I have my density, my jitter, and my random, which are these three knobs right here, mapped to this, this, and this. And then I have this thing called duration drift right here, which just adds a change to the duration, along with this smoothing knob, which just slows down how quickly this is being modulated because it's kind of noisy at the default value. And to really quickly run how I set that up, basically what I have here is a fruity formula controller using the randomness preset, which is an LFO randomness. And as you can see in the instructions right here, if you're using the fruity formula controller, which I recommend you do, it has some good presets with a good explanation of how they work. So A is going to be my base level. This is kind of similar to how fruity peak controller works. And then B is going to be the range of my randomness. So as I turn B up, which I have set my duration drift to control, it introduces randomness, which then gets mapped by this fruity Z controller. If you don't know how the mapping works in here, you can basically set up an input-output mapping ratio. So here at 0%, set the output to be at 50%. And the reason that I've set this up the way that I have is so that the grain values or the duration do not get too short, because at a super short value, you get kind of this. Super tiny, like almost ring modulated grains. I don't really love that too much. I kind of like this better. So following my mappings right here, when the input value is at 0, the value gets multiplied by my B value right here, with there being a separate modulation called smoothing that affects the global speed. So as you can see, just slowing down how this little dot moves right here, so really jittery or kind of smoothly. And all of that comes together to give me a little bit of duration drift. And you could set that to modulate any of these parameters, but I just felt like the duration, maybe the density would be another good one to put that on, but the duration was what I liked the best there. Then I also have a feedback function in case you want to add like a delayed tail type thing to this. So now let's get into the grain scramble here, which is this module. And all that is a multiband delay where I've used one of these presets. I believe it's the Spectral morph, and I've activated the morph knob and modulated that using a Fruity Peak controller where the output is only the LFO. So it's sending the LFO here, and I'll kind of turn this on so you can see it. It's sending that LFO into this morph knob section, and that's always on no matter what. And the way that this one works is there's no delay applied. And so as you'll kind of hear here, as I turn my delay scale up, we start to get different frequency bands that are creating different delayed grains at different time values that are being morphed, which just adds a bunch of randomness. And since the signal's gotten pretty quiet at this point, I added these 3 OTTs, which just affect this OTT that is post spectral gate pre-pitch shifter, this OTT that takes the shifted signal and makes it louder before the multiband delay or the grain scrambler, and then this last one which just OTTs it before it gets outputted. So these are useful like once you kind of start getting a really quiet signal to just boost that and let you be able to hear the stuff that you're making a little better. Then lastly, we have the feedback knob. So if I want single grains that aren't delayed and like kind of spacious, I can bring this all the way down. Or if I fade it up, I can kind of start getting like big tails. Then lastly, I have this mod rate knob, which is just linked to my Fruity Peak controller's speed right here. So as I turn this up, we can get even slower modulations, or if I turn it down, we can get really fast modulations. And so as you'll see on the morph knob here, that's just affecting how quickly the morph knob moves. So really quickly, or super slowly. So I kind of like the sound of that. Let's bring some dry input gain into this just to see how that like beefs up the signal. So I'm kind of liking that. Now lastly, let's talk about this backfill verb, and I'll just kind of play and you can hear what it sounds like first. And so hopefully, as you can hear there, it's just adding a texture underneath the grains. And the way that I've accomplished this here is I'm sending the output from the Fruity Pitch Shifter into a reverb where this knob just controls the wetness of the reverb. And I have it automatically set up where the audio from the multiband delay, so the little different grains that I've added are ducking the reverb signal. Now, I understand if you don't want to design one of these yourself, you can get this preset on my Patreon. And so I know that was a super quick breakdown, but if we start from 0 and I'm like doing the very basics of Patcher for every Patcher tutorial, we'll never get to more advanced stuff like this. So I do have a Patcher Basics. If you don't understand a lot of this one that you can watch, I'll link that or do a little end card for that. Thank you for watching. If you want to support Patreon, Gumroad, lessons, hit me up. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.